three things every employer needs to remember. Number one, the employee needs to appreciate and like the person they work for. Number two, they have to actually enjoy the job they're doing, enjoy where they come to work and what they're doing. And number three is usually compensation. They obviously have to make enough money to live. They have to put food on the table, a little extra, be able to go on vacations.
Hello, everybody. I'm Greg Tomczyk. Welcome to the Connected Mindset Podcast, where each week we bring you the stories to better connect with the world around you. Let's dive into this week's podcast. Eric, welcome to the Connected Mindset Live.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. For the folks listening in, what would be one mindset that you would want them to walk away with from tuning into this episode?
I think one of the big ones, if we're talking business, is simplicity. So simple scales and complex fails. So if you can walk away with that one, that's a winner.
How has that evolved for you over your personal life, your professional life? What pitfalls have you fallen into, by overcomplicating things? And
well, if business owners and entrepreneurs love to overcomplicate things, that's for sure. They might build a business and they get bored if it's running pretty good. And then they're like, let me invent some more stuff to do. And so we try and dial that back. So instead of trying to add more, we're trying to see what we can take away. The other side of that coin is on the simplicity side. If you're creating systems that are simple, it's so much easier to train someone. If you have a new employee coming in, and you have this complicated thing, it's going to take them forever to get traction. If you have a simple thing, they can gain traction much faster.
Absolutely. Why do you think it's so hard for entrepreneurs to delegate, to get out of that seat of having to dictate everything around them? I see that a lot with the entrepreneurs around me.
Yeah, you're going to see that a lot if they're under like 1.5 million in revenue. Getting over that, maybe 2 million, whatever that number might be, they have to get out of that.
Yeah. Forced.
Usually it's a bunch of control and OCD. Like it has to be done a certain way because they built the business. So they know how it's supposed to be run. But I mean, if you watch Dan Martell or listen to him, I mean, one of his classic lines is 80% done by someone else is 100% awesome. Right. So if you want to build or scale, you have to delegate to other people. If you're stuck doing the whole thing or watching every single thing in the business, you're only going to be able to get to a certain point because you're only one person.
Yeah. Yeah, I know Dan talks a lot about the take back time. I know he's big on time, on routine, on cadence. What have been the biggest lessons you've taken away from mentors, like Dan, throughout your business, and how critical have they been to get you where you are today?
Very critical. So some of the mentors taught me so much more about the finance side of business, the marketing side. So let's just take that one for a minute. Many people that start a business, word of mouth, friends, relatives, they want to be supportive. So they start off coming out of the gate and they have clients and they're doing great, but that doesn't last forever. So I go in and sometimes I'm coaching business owners and they have zero marketing budget. And that's a recipe for disaster. So marketing is something I've learned. Leadership, is huge. How to deal with employees, how to help employees grow. Because if you can help them grow, then you're building a great culture and they in turn will help you and your business to grow. So finances, marketing, sales, production, leadership, all areas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think about when my parents were getting into the workforce, the traditional trajectory was, go work for a company for 20 years. And I see this in my own business, but also other entrepreneurs around me. There's a lot of high turnover. What do you think that attributes to? Do you think it's a leadership thing, or do you think it's the employee, the team member, the person is just, they reach a level and then they want to pivot to a new company?
I've actually thought about this a lot, especially over the last 10 years, for that exact question, because there's really no loyalty left. So there's not loyalty for a business to the employee, and there's not loyalty from the employee to the business. And so I started thinking about that. And what I came up with, and I'm no expert at this is just me trying to work it out in my own head, was greed. It felt like corporate greed. It felt like corporate greed took over, where profits were more important than their employees. So therefore, I think the first thing that happened was mass layoffs or whatever that looked like. As soon as you have enough of that over 20, 30, 40 years, the employees start to think, why should I even work here? If there's another opportunity, I'm going to go there because obviously this company doesn't care about me. And that, I think, is one of the downfalls of big business. And sometimes when you have a small business, maybe 10 people, 12 people, 20 people, something like that, you can build a much better culture. And maybe you won't have employees leave like that. Yeah. You're always going to have 20%. 20% are always, coming and going. Yeah. But your core 80%, you can make solid with good culture.
Mm-hmm. When you think about, the top people you've brought on your team that you've really been able to partner with, to delegate things to, and then they start to kind of have some of the self-leadership, I think a lot of us entrepreneurs look for is people that you can feed into, but then they start persevering on their own instead of fully depending on you as the business owner. What did those people have when they first came in that allowed them to elevate? And what could business owners listening into look for in those people off the bat?
You have to have a good hiring practice. That's number one, because you got to be able to find this person and weed people out. They're the type of person that do not make excuses. They own their mistakes. They want to do better. Another part is they buy into your culture. They believe in what you're doing. In turn, you believe in them. So you're helping them with their personal goals, their professional goals, their financial goals. So it's a win-win. They also buy into your vision. So if your vision as a company is to grow a business to 10 million in revenue, if you're to help, create 5,000 widgets or whatever this looks like, they buy into that vision and they want to be part of that vision.
How important do you think incentives are? So I know it seems like the companies that I look up to as I build a business, they've found a way to almost naturally incentivize people to do the right thing, to have that, self-autonomy, or to buy into the culture because they feel like it's going to elevate them personally. And it kind of goes back to the greed thing a little bit. Like we're all looking out for ourselves. And if we're on a team, I saw this in baseball, if everybody's looking out for themselves and doesn't really care what either happens to the company or to the person that the business owner or the other person on the team, it can kind of be a formula for positivity, but then also that can turn into negativity if not controlled.
To answer your question, the three things every employer needs to remember is, number one, the employee needs to appreciate and like the person they work for. So their direct report, the manager, they have to be able to get along with that person. Number two, they have to actually enjoy the job they're doing, enjoy where they come to work and what they're doing. And number three is usually compensation. They obviously have to make enough money to live. They have to put food on the table, low extra, be able to go on vacations. That's an important piece as well, but it's usually not number one.
Absolutely. Yeah, a lot of people think money is number one. I think when we're, especially when we're coming up in our career, we get out of college. I think today, most of the young people are really chasing the dollars first, but they kind of deprecate the first two, which oftentimes they get into an environment that's high earnings and then they lose themselves because they don't have those first two.
Well, definitely in the 20s, you're chasing money. You might have college debt. You're trying to land on your feet, pay your bills. When you get in your 30s, and depending on what this looks like for the individual person, if they're starting a family, all of a sudden time becomes a little more important. So, hopefully they're making some money where they can, like you said with Dan's book, buy back your time. And then they're paying someone to maybe cut the grass, or they're paying someone to do something around the house so they can enjoy more time with their kids. Mm-hmm. And as that goes on and as they propel in their career, that usually gets more and more as far as buying back their time.
Yeah. We spend most of our time at work. for a lot of businesses, especially ones that are growing. You're not traditionally working, 8 to 4, 8 to 5. Maybe you're working after hours. I see sometimes that creates resentment in some people because they may not have an ownership stake. And I feel like when somebody is reporting to the CEO or to the business owner, the business owner is kind of doing everything all over the place early on. And you can't sometimes feed into the people as much as you could if you were just a manager and not the owner. How have you seen, have either yourself or have you seen other people as the owner still find the time, like Dan says, buy back your time to, you get somebody to cut the lawn. Now you can feed back into, your people in a better way. So they don't build that resentment of, I'm not being focused on enough, which is that number, number two, who you're directly reporting to, if that's the owner and the CEO.
Sure. I think this ties into a few things. Maybe work-life balance is what we're referring to.
Yeah.
That's important. I guess you have to have your eyes open as a manager or a business owner that you're giving your people that work-life balance. The other side of that is respect. So if you're not respecting the employees that are putting in all this effort, I mean, where are you going to end up with? You're going to end up with the resentment that you said. But there's also personal drive. So sometimes when I'm talking to my employees and, they're trying to excel in their position, and I tell them straight up, you might have to put in effort outside of work to learn a certain skill to be able to do what you want to do. And it's no different than, say, an attorney who has a 9 to 5 or whatever that looks like, but that person might want to be a partner, or that person might want to, have a case in front of the Virginia Supreme Court, something like that. I will promise you they put in effort after hours.
Definitely.
On that, something like that, because it would elevate their career. I think people could take that away and say, hey, I do have to put some effort in outside of the normal working hours if I want X.
Absolutely. Yeah. And since we spend most of our time at work and maybe not on the family side, I see a lot of cultures that start to talk about their work culture as family. Do you feel like that's toxic, or do you think there's a healthy balance between, having your family, like your real family, and then having like friends, and then you have your business, which is like, we're on a mission, we care about each other, but we don't blend this is your family when you come here. Sure. From a cultural perspective.
I guess this is where the work wife came from, or whatever terminology people use. I did not invent this, but I heard it. I call it different bank accounts or different checking accounts. So you're making deposits and withdrawals from different bank accounts. So one bank account is your work life and the people around you. That might be, hey, someone's celebrating, a special 10-year at someplace, or a birthday or something like that, and you're doing something there. It's probably much different what you're doing there than you're doing for your spouse for their birthday. It's a totally different checking account, different amount of money, different mindset.
Definitely. Yeah, I think that's important. And it takes me back to the mindset of your business becomes who the owner is internally. Oftentimes, like if the owner yells at people at home, oftentimes the owner is going to yell at people at the business, and they really start to blend. And how important it is for us as business owners, as entrepreneurs, to take care of ourselves so that we can take care of other people. How important has that been for you to like know your own mind, know your own habits, and then take that from your personal life to your professional life?
The way I lead now compared to the way I led in my 20s is so different. Yeah. But employees are different now too. It might have been a much more abusive 30 years ago. In my 20s, you could really holler and yell and scream and people wouldn't quit. Nowadays, they're going to walk out. You talking about that reminds me, I come from the automotive space, automotive repair. So sometimes you have technicians that, are awesome at what they do, but never in a million years do you want this person talking to a customer. right? You don't know what's going to come out of their mouth. You don't know if they're going to yell and scream or do whatever. If the customer makes them mad, you just put them back in the corner, have them do their thing that they love and keep them far away. So back to your question, as far as the leadership side, as far as being an entrepreneur and that personality and what's different, I think it comes with maturity. I think it comes with mindset. I think it comes with something I do, which is reading 10 pages of nonfiction every single day. Sometimes those are finance books. Sometimes those are leadership books, mindset books. Also, I am one who really thrives when someone tells me something I don't want to hear, because I can take that feedback. And when someone says, hey, Eric, you're really messing up, you really need to do X. I mean, it might sting in the very beginning, but then I really think about it and I'm like, this person is right. And I need to take this and improve.
Yeah. Yeah. Feedback's so critical. And I know I've found through both baseball and through business that everybody takes feedback differently. And early on in my business career, I thought everybody took feedback how I took it, which was tell me everything that's wrong. Tell me everything, you don't even have to tell me what's right. Tell me what's wrong and I'll, make it right, fix it. And not everybody operated like that. So I'm curious of your transition from knowing how you took feedback and how you wanted feedback, and then making sure you kind of are able to read people well enough to give them feedback, especially when your mind's moving quick and you're like, we need to do this better. And instead of just saying, we need to do this better and here's how we should do it, kind of taking a step back potentially. And
yeah, for sure. There's some steps to it. I mean, like the first step is you come from a place of empathy. So you start off with the assumption that the employee is not doing something maliciously, right? It might be a mistake. Secondly, it's not about the person, it's about maybe a metric, might be about a number. I mean, in your case, maybe batting average or something, or how you're standing. It's not you as an individual, so that you can connect with the baseball, better, something like that. Third, you look at the entire process and work through that with that person. So therefore, like, hey, we started here and we need to get to there. What's the process? What are these steps we're doing? And sometimes there you can identify where the issue is. So once again, it's not the person. It was actually the process. So maybe it's actually the business owner's fault because their system was flawed. From there, you create some, benchmarks and some action steps, and you go from there. And then you can rinse and repeat, revisit it in, 7 days. This is what I need from you. Can you do this? Can you do that? And then let's talk again in 7 days or 10 days or 30 days, whatever that looks like. If you have that system, it goes much easier. It's not as personal.
Yeah. So. There's a lot of maturity in not the person, it's the process. Because I know in baseball specifically, whenever we talk to an umpire that made a bad call or, fumbled a certain play, we were always taught never say you, like never insult them as a person. It may have just been the weather or the elements or, the other players on your team, made a small mistake, like looking at the whole chain of reaction. I think as especially as young, entrepreneurs, we look at everything personally because it's impacting, our bank account at the business. And we think it's that person's fault. And I think that leads a lot of people down a dark path of criticizing people. And then they feel like, they're being, put down. And there's this whole cycle of, put down, then you get angry, then you steal information, and there's all kinds of bad things that can happen.
So to play off that, when I'm coaching business owners and they're talking about that exact thing, I reflect on it and say, your business is like your baby. Like the baby was born, so you start a business, and then you help the baby grow up. You changed its diapers, you fed, make sure it was taken care of, make sure it was safe. Okay. And then maybe this baby is now 8 or a teenager or something like that. So when an employee does something in the business you don't like, it's the equivalent of saying that your baby's ugly or smacking your kid. Okay. And instantly business owners are like, whoa, wait a minute. I don't like what just happened here. You called my baby ugly, right? Or whatever that looks like. And they have a reaction to it. So when I explain this to them, they're like, that makes total sense. And so they can come, from a different point of view after that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the quicker we can, and it may happen like around the 1.5 to 2 million where we have to delegate things, we're forced to realize that other people need to take care of the baby potentially versus everything that happens to the business is a direct reflection of Eric or of Greg. And I think that's an important distinction to be able to separate and I think treat your people fully right. Because I think early on when we're on the way up or on the come up per se, everything that happens, we like look at ourselves versus looking at the business, right? We're like, this is on Greg. This is not on the process or the business.
Sure.
And I think that can really be a negative situation. I think that could be why a lot of businesses fail. What is 85-90% of businesses fail out before 5 years, and probably before 1.5 million to 2 million.
Well, they definitely burn themselves out usually, and just like I can't do this anymore. And part of it, from what you were saying, is they have to be okay with mistakes. People are not perfect. People are human. But what I've discovered over 30 some years is your customer is very forgiving. If you just talk to your customer, if you just explain, if you just own it, if you just apologize, if you just do something to make it right, they're very forgiving. So if your employee makes a mistake, it's going to happen. You just deal with it. But you'll never be able to scale unless you have that mindset.
If you're leading a team or organization right now, connection is no longer optional. I help teams build trust, navigate uncertainty, and lead with clarity in a changing world. Through real stories and practical insight, your audience will leave more confident and ultimately more connected. To bring me in to speak, visit Greg Tomczyk/book to speak. That's Greg Tomczyk/book to speak. Now let's get back to the conversation. For the businesses you've built, in the auto space, I'm thinking specifically, did you start as a mechanic or did you start as a manager level of, I understand this process fully, and then I need to staff the experts that are actually doing the hands-on work?
I started at age 16 after high school, let out. Started, high school let out like 2 or something, 2:10, and my shift at the Amoco station, so it was a gas station with repair, started at 3. So I worked from 3 to 9 Monday through Friday, and from noon to 6 on Saturday. So I started off pumping gas, cleaning the bathrooms, cleaning the bays, plugging tires when we used to plug tires. We don't plug tires anymore. We patch tires. That's the proper way. All that. So I grew up in the school of hard knocks, doing all the grunt work. And then I graduated to technician. Then I graduated to lead technician. And then it was a quick jump from there, because then at age 22, I jumped straight to owner. So there was almost no management. Yeah. So I was just thrown to the wolves quite early.
Do you recall the point in time where you let go of the mechanical skill sets? Because I know for my business, when I was trained with other companies, I was doing the work and then I would hire people to do the work. But I knew that if they failed, I could always come in and fix the engine or patch the tire because they did it wrong.
Sure.
Was there a point in time where you had to let go of that ability to go save the day?
Yeah. I got my first coach in my 40s, business coach. And he quickly showed me that if I ever wanted to get to a certain revenue level, I couldn't be the guy out there turning the wrenches. I had to, drive the ship with a direction, right? With a chart. This is where we're going. I still have I grew up as a tech, right? Fixing things. My dad's an engineer. It's in my genes. Yeah. I still have a toolbox at my shop. I don't even know why I still have that there, because I have not gone into that toolbox to grab tools to fix anything, and I can't even remember when. So I should probably tow it out of there and give the guys more space. So, but I know exactly where it was about 20 years ago, 15 years ago. is when I, finally got to that point, that realization, and that's when everything changed. So that's the takeaway. If you can get yourself out of the day to day and you can start driving the ship, on a course to a certain direction, you're going to scale so much faster.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of freedom to that feeling. I know I've felt it periodically, and as the business bobs and flows and we add more services, I get pulled back down. Was there amount of people that you had, or was it a person that was kind of managing below you where you started to trust them enough where you really could do what your mentor was saying and let go and not look at the toolbox like it's, should I do it? Should I go?
Sure.
Should I go?
Well, during that time, when I brought on the coach, and I had great people that worked for me. So I looked within and I said, okay, who can I mentor myself and bring up? And that's what I did. So I had people I could elevate and people I could train. And there's a joy that comes from this that I think a lot of entrepreneurs are missing, that you have all this skill set, you have all this leadership, you have all these things you've built up running this business, learning, you're reading 10 pages a day, this gift that you're keeping to yourself when you could give that gift to someone else and make more money doing it. Yeah. So you're giving a gift and you're receiving a 10x what you're giving. It's fun when you finally have that realization.
Yeah. So you went from technician to, because I think a lot of the audience they don't see the kind of different labels that there are in a business. So you have the technicians, you have the managers, you have the owner. What other roles come to mind? Because you kind of need them. You need people in the right seats with the right skills.
Sure. So, all businesses have marketing, sales, production, and delivery. So if we just use automotive repair as an example, you'd have service advisors. They're the ones that are putting together the estimates and talking to the customers and selling the work. I have a general manager, so he oversees everything. You have technicians, they're the one producing the work. You have helpers. They're the ones that are making sure the shop's clean, washing cars, assisting technicians. Hey, can you hold this for me? Can you, pry here? Can you go get me this? We have a parts advisor, so they assist the service advisors. So the parts advisor is, coming up with where to source all the things we need. I am the owner. That's it.
Yeah.
In that business.
How does because I see people when they get into their first few businesses, they have this decision between start your own or buy into a franchise. What are your thoughts on the benefits of franchising? Obviously getting some of the systems versus building it based off of your experience, and just kind of looking at those two business options.
And there's a third option of buying an established money-making business that's not a franchise. So the franchise system works because they've created all your systems for you. So you don't have to do that hard work. You walk in with a certain amount of capital, a buy-in, and then also you're paying them a certain percentage of your sales, I believe, and also you're putting in a certain amount of money every month for marketing, something like that. Most franchises work the same. If it is a proven business model and it will work, I'm all for it. As far as building your own from scratch, if you have the drive, you can do anything. Yeah. You have to, if you have an idea, if you have a gap, if you're skilled at a certain something and you see a gap in the market, then you should fill the gap with that skill. But first, before you go all in and invest all your time and energy, you need to sell that thing to somebody. You need to make sure you have a customer. You have to go out and sell it. And then you can kind of build the plane as you fly it from there. As far as buying an existing well-run business, that usually is easier than building it from scratch. You have a proven system. You can then perfect it. But that usually costs the most amount of money.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I see a lot of people looking into, the baby boomers, the whole generational thing that's happening, the turn of the leaf, and people are wanting to get out of their business. Would you advise people to buy an existing cash flow positive business or join a franchise type model in same industries side by side?
I've never owned a franchise. I think it would have to be the perfect franchise model for me to invest in that, because I see the upside potential of not being in a franchise. So I feel like I'm at a point in my career that I could build a business or my existing business where I don't have to give a portion of my proceeds to someone. I've built it. I've gone through the hard knocks. Some people want what someone has, but isn't willing to do the work they did. And so if that's the case, then the franchise model would work for them.
What was the gap that you saw between going from the AMCO station and then at 22, starting your AutoWorks or your auto shop business?
Actually, I bought the Amoco at age 22. So
okay, gotcha. Interesting.
And so there were a couple transitions. So I had the Amoco station in my 20s, and then BP bought Amoco. BP did not want any more repair shops. I got a hold of the land lease. I then changed the name, went strictly auto repair, and then did that for 15 years, and then purchased European Autowerks, and then built that up to what it is today. Gotcha. What was your original question?
What was the gap? What was the gap you saw? Maybe for European Autowerks, like going from maybe a repair shop that serviced every vehicle, where you like there's a gap in these types of vehicles being serviced.
The gap I saw when I was looking at the books is he was burned out. The previous owner of European Autowerks was burned out. He was ready to retire. He did not have his heart into that business for the previous 1 to 3 years, and he was ready to sell. And so the gap that I was able to fill was all of it: marketing, sales, production, delivery, revamping the whole place. But it was in an existing location with equipment, with some employees. I brought my employees over as well. And it had a great reputation because he did take good care of customers. So that's the important side, that someone didn't drive the reputation into the ground that you would have to spend years to rebuild.
Yeah, definitely. Did you stay one location, or did you ever look into multiple locations? What was the
one location? I've had multiple locations in the past. When it comes to auto repair, I'm not a fan of 2 locations. I'm a fan of 3 or more. 2 locations, you're usually doing twice the work for half the money because you are stretched so thin. If you have 3 or more, now you can put some management in place, some layers, maybe district manager or something like that. So I'm a fan of that. I had decided way back when that I was going a different direction. I was going to run one shop really well, and then I was going to coach. So that's what I'm doing currently is my shop runs autonomously. Have a manager. We still talk every single week. I still mentor and lead him. He's doing great, but a lot of my focus is mentoring and coaching business owners around the country, and I have one in Canada, so I'm international now.
Excellent. Yeah, that's incredible. What are some of the biggest lessons you've learned as a coach? Obviously, you impart a lot of your experience on them, but putting yourself in that coaching seat that you've learned going from owner and operator to now zooming out and coaching people to maybe solve some of the problems that you had that you were able to navigate.
Sure. It's probably the same thing that you realized when you had a coach for baseball. The coach sees things the player does not. I see things in the business that I'm coaching and the entrepreneur and what they're doing that they do not see. I almost see immediately based on what they're telling me or what was happening. These could be number issues. These could be leadership issues with employees. I had a coaching session yesterday with a company, and they had their highest revenue employee had an issue. I'm not going to say what the issue is, but that employee had an issue. Their top guy. And because of this issue, and that issue had happened previously, like a year before, it'd been a long time, that they felt like, hey, if this happens, or if he does this one thing one more time, then he can't work here. And he was now under this microscope. And I was I heard the story, And I was like, how could any human being live up to this? That he needs to be perfect.
Yeah.
And if he's not perfect, he does not have a job. So I helped coach through that. And I'm like, hey, is there another way? Can we go to this person, talk to this person? Can we give this person 2 weeks off to paid? Okay. He'd been there quite a while. Okay. Top producer. He's going through something. Can we give this person 2 weeks to work this out? Paid. So he doesn't have to worry about his bills, doesn't have to worry about all this. And they were like, wow, that's a great idea. Yeah. So we went from, let's fire the person to, hey, maybe we can give them 2 weeks vacation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Actually, it was a lot of fun, and they're going to give me feedback on how it works out.
Yeah.
So I'm rooting for the employee.
Yeah.
I hope he was able to turn that around and keep his job.
It's common sense sometimes isn't common, especially when you're in the fire.
Yeah.
When you're in the jar, you can't see the label.
And I think it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. When you own a business and the business is your kid, and this guy did something, and it's like, he smacked their kid.
Yeah.
And they didn't like it. Right. And so they had a reaction.
Absolutely. Yeah. What do you think the biggest thing holding service business owners back is?
Having to be perfect, having to have their hand in everything, not creating systems that work. So when you don't have systems that work and you teach these systems, or you have a playbook, if that's what you'd like to call it, the employee's making it up every single day. And so when the employee doesn't get it perfect, what's the owner do? The owner goes and fusses at them. Hey, you didn't do this right. Why didn't you do this like this? I've told you this before. Well, maybe you told them 6 months ago and they forgot because they have 3,000 other things on their mind.
Yeah.
And so that's the biggest downfall I've seen.
Do you have any systems that you've seen work really well? I know there's entrepreneurial operating. There's like all these different frameworks and systems out there for a service business. I look at them as community service businesses where they're providing a niche service. Do you think there's a structure that somebody listening in today that does not have that playbook that really wants to do it?
Sure.
Can start on or consider?
Yeah. I'll give you the easiest way. This is, I do this still. It's called Chat GPT and not the free version, $20. Okay. If you can't get off $20 for Chat GPT, you might be in the wrong business. But if you prompt Chat GPT, or you create your system on what you would like that to look at, or you ask Chat GPT, hey, go out there in the world and be my systems expert and give back the perfect systems outline. Don't make it more than 2 pages, wherever this looks like. It's going to have a title, it's going to have a definition, steps, what to look for, KPIs, all this other stuff. And then perfect it. If you don't like something, tell it to change it. And then once you have that form, you then create a project. And that project is, hey, here is the system that we're going to be using in this format. Anytime I prompt you to create a system on how to use the point of sale system to cash out a customer, or how to bake a loaf of bread, wherever this looks like, wherever business you're in, you then prompt it for that, and it will spit out the system for you 1,000 times better than you can do it yourself. It'll probably be 99.5%. That's my experience. You go paste that into a Google Doc, Microsoft Word, whichever you like, and then you might adjust a few words, might add a sentence, and you're done. And I challenge people, go do 3 this week, 2, whatever. Just get started. By the time you're, a month in, you'll probably have your entire playbook.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just getting started. I think the first step's the hardest part. How important has, going to the AI piece of things, like how important has technology been to the evolution of your, businesses since you were 22, going through the acquisition by BP and then European Autowerks, and then now coaching? How do you look at how technology has either improved or made your business harder potentially?
I can't think of many cases that made it harder, except when it comes to the difficulty of cars and the complexity of cars and repairing cars. The difficulty there is training technicians on the complex systems on automotive repair. That one's difficult because we have a lack of technicians across the country. That one's challenged, so we're constantly training and we're constantly trying to find the best there. As far as the other side of it, I love technology and I love change. And I embrace change in technology from an early age. And going back to cars have always changed. Okay, there used to be technicians, mechanics that said, oh my gosh, disc brakes is going to be the end of my career. Everything's going to go to the dealer. Or anti-lock brakes, or airbags, or ADAS, or fuel injection, or whatever. They've all said it. And I'm like, no, bring it, because I want to learn this thing and I want to be better at what I do. And if I'm better at what I do, I can charge what I need to charge and I can make more money. So that is on the car side. On the business side, I started off writing tickets by hand on paper. And when the first point sale system came for the automotive space, that was a game changer. And it's just gotten better and better and better. And it's so much easier. And, that's what helps us scale. Yeah. If my guys were writing paper tickets today, we wouldn't be able to scale very easily.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that makes a lot of sense. And I think there's a lot of restraint I see in businesses that have always done it one way, and they don't embrace change as much as you have. And I see that very frequently being a technology business owner, that there's a restriction.
There's a couple types of businesses, one like mine where I said, hey, I embrace change and it's helped me grow and it's helped me scale. But then you have some nostalgic businesses that maybe shouldn't change. So for instance, right down the road, we have Dumars. Okay. That place looks very similar to how it looked 20 years ago and maybe 50 years ago, but they do very well because it's nostalgic. So I'm not saying they should change. I think they should stay just like they are and maybe change uniforms or make, easier for the employee here and there. But the way they do their ice cream cones and the way they serve food and their menu and all that, I think they're doing just great how they are.
Absolutely. Yeah, don't change what's not broken.
Correct.
Yeah.
100%.
But technology can help fix, what is broken, and it can do it at scale and it can do it rapidly. So I think it's cool to see that you've embraced technology. Eric, before we get to the final question, where can folks find you, connect with you, maybe inquire about coaching their service business?
Yeah. If they go to gofuelcoaching.com, you'll read about me. You'll see what I do. I like helping service-based businesses, but if you have other questions, I'd be more than happy to jump on a call, answer or give value to whomever is your listening audience.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll make sure that is in the show notes. Appreciate what you're doing to inform service business owners, and you're feeding back the experience and the knowledge you've learned into either the current generation or the next generation of business owners, which is extremely important. So we don't repeat history over and over again and repeat the same mistakes. I think a lot of us get in that loop. So having folks like yourself that can shepherd us and help us avoid some of those potholes that you may have hit, I think is very important. One of the ways we like to wrap up the show, because we're all about connection, we're all about connecting to something deeper and having the mindsets that allow us to do that. I'm curious what connection means to you.
Connection. What connection means to me? I think the word joy comes to mind. So when I connect with people, whether it's friends, whether it's relatives, whether it's employees, customers, there's a true sense of joy. I walk away from the interaction smiling. I walk away a better person, and that brings me a lot of joy.
Yeah. Eric Svedberg, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, thank you so much for listening. If you're feeling more connected from this episode, please like, subscribe, and share with someone that you care about. And I'll see you on the next episode of the Connected Mindset Podcast.